should you quote unquote train clients, or should you create an experience that almost feels so seamless for them? Or at what point do you need to train them or hand them off to a vendor? How does that work in this giant app ecosystem?
So I think that it depends on the app, because some apps, I think it's just the nature of them that there really shouldn't be much training required. It should be simple and straightforward. And then in other cases, it's going to be like a Notify that I mentioned before. It's a complex tool. It does a lot. So you're going to have to expect to have to do some training on something like that. So part of it depends on the app. And then I think it's a question of how you approach clients. So for example, this proposal I sent out to a client yesterday was for monthly bookkeeping services, really weekly. And what I outlined in the proposal is that the fee that I quoted does not include training. That if they need training on apps, that's going to be additional. Because what I found, and this is just from experience, in the past I included it and said, yeah, we'll just train you on whatever apps, but all of a sudden I have clients that are pinging me for an hour every week, giving them more and more training, and because why not? It's unlimited, it's not costing them any extra. So I realized, but that's taking up a lot of my time. So I realized that I might include a certain amount of training, because you have to expect that some of it I'm the one who's telling them they got to use the app. I should be prepared to give them a reasonable amount of training, but I think there has to be a limit placed on that, after which you say, all right, any additional training we need beyond this. You hire a new employee, they want training, you want me to do the training, it's so much per hour. You can't really value price that kind of thing. Believe me, I've tried, and I've tried. It's going to boil back down to effectively an hourly arrangement, because I've tried to do things where I said, all right, $500 a month, unlimited training, right? But then the problem is somebody starts taking advantage of that a lot. I lose my shirt on that, right? So then I say, all right, $500 a month up to 10 hours in training. Well, now I'm charging $50 an hour, right? So you really can't get around, I think, an hourly pricing model when it comes to, application training. It's just, like I said, I've tried it. But so I think you should plan on incorporating that in one way, shape, or form into your service that you're offering. Of course, a lot of what I do is training in and of itself. So I put videos out on a product like Smartsheet, and people will come and they'll hire me one-on-one and say, help me build out my monthly bookkeeping checklist in Smartsheet. That's top of mind, because I just produced something about that last night. But so it's those kinds of things that we look at doing, and how to implement the actual training. The actual question is, how to train clients to interact with tools. To get real specific about the process, I use Zoom web conferencing because it's real easy for people to use, even for the less tech savvy. I found it real easy for the non-tech savvy to get into the meeting and share their screen real quick. And the best way to train them is to get them to put their hands on the tool. So I have them log into their app, I let them share their screen with me, and I walk them through it. And I record the session, also very easy to do with Zoom, so I can provide them with the recording. And that's a huge value add, because they're not going to remember a lot of it on their own. But having a recording to refer back to, and then I write up some notes so that they know if there's 4 or 5 recordings that we've done over a period of time, they can refer to those notes so they know which video covered which subjects within that app. And so that's kind of the process that I use.
Heather, I'm interested to hear your perspective on training clients to interact with the tools, and then of course we'll pass it over to Blake.
Yes, I charge for it. Typically I'll say, okay, an hour, we'll go through it, or I'll provide video links. A lot of my bookkeeping that I do, either sometimes I have straight training packages and that's all I'm doing. They want to do it 100% themselves, and we come up with a training package, and I say, okay, this is what we're going to outline, and until we do the first initial training, I don't necessarily know, or they don't know how much they're going to retain. But I do record it as well. I use Zoom. But it also depends. If I'm going to be doing the bookkeeping, someone on my team is going to be doing the bookkeeping, or if like after the fact bookkeeping, or if they're going to use the app themselves. Some of my clients use the actual apps we install out when they're at shows or when they're somewhere, so they need to know how to use the app or how it integrates. Like if we're using a receipt app like Receipt Bank, they need to know how to use it. They're going to have to install it on their phone. I can't necessarily walk them through that. I mean, I do on the phone, but yeah, we have to do training, and I don't do it for free anymore, because like Seth said, sometimes you have and you're doing a million phone calls or text messages or emails on how to fix something, and it's just not cost effective.
Do you price it in a similar way to Seth, where it's like up to 10 hours for $500, or is it a pure hourly that you do, or what structure?
No, what I say is typically I'll do like a 3-hour package and say, here you go, if you buy 3 hours, and you get a discounted rate, and then we can replenish it after that. Because some people are like, I'm like, well, here's the hourly rate if you just want to do 1 hour. Like I had a client last week. oh, it's only going to take 10 minutes. I said, no, then you can purchase an hour of training. I'm like, you know, why don't you wait until you have enough questions and let's do a full hour? Well, I just have 10 minutes. Well, I've done this with her 3 other times, and it turns into an hour and a half each phone call. I'm not going to do it anymore. So, I mean, you know, Seth, I mean, that's probably what happens as well. You're like, oh, 10 minutes, and then you're like, or even if you do screenshots and you annotate them and you send them back. I mean, I save all my screenshots now, and I just block out all the client information so I can just resend them.
Yeah, I just make the generic video in cases like that so that going forward when the same question gets asked, I just shoot them that link to that video, and it's either in my blog or on YouTube, which is another opportunity, by the way, to drive traffic to my website. If I have a blog that covers these generic things, if I get asked the same question over and over again, I'm going to make a video, throw it up on YouTube and Vimeo, and that way when the opportunity is there, you know, everything's really searchable. And just to clarify, I don't do like $500 up to 10 hours. I mean, most of my business is training, so I have packages that start at 1 hour for $250 and go all the way up to 20 hours for $3,500. And I have my pricing table right on my site. So when it gets there, that's when I'll just send them there. And then what I do is I prorate it. So if somebody takes a 5-hour plan and when they use up the 5 hours and they buy another 5 hours, I'll give them a coupon code to make it as though they had paid for 10 right up front. It's my way of just adding more value to it. So this way, it's like if they can't afford $3,500 right up front for 20 hours, I kind of make it worth their while to keep incrementally increasing the time with me. Because why not? It's really not costing me anything to do that. But that's how I do it, is they pay for a set number of hours. And if we're not clear, because I get that a lot, I don't know how much time I need, then usually what I say is let's start with a 1.5-hour session. And by the end of that session, we'll know for sure if and how much more time we need. That's how I structure it.
That's a
and I never do
way.
less than an hour.
Blake, have you had a similar experience where somebody will request time, training, whatever it is, and trying to be respectful of your own time, but then still train clients to interact with the tool in some way? How have you been able to navigate that kind of scenario?
So we do it a little bit differently in the firms that I've been involved in, and what I do currently now is I don't ever want to present hours to the client at all if I can avoid it. I've become sort of a Ron Baker disciple, and it's better just to keep that out of the equation if I can. What we would do with HPC is we would bundle in the training into the setup engagement, into that initial fee the client's paying for integrating all the applications and setting them up. We knew approximately how much time that was going to take just from experience, and so we could increase it if there were more complex apps. We could decrease it if we had to, and we knew from experience that we were not going to be out of pocket on the setups, regardless of how, even if it took the most training it possibly could. And the other reason is that we would also account for a little bit of training every month in our monthly ongoing services packages, and we weren't doing any setups for just one-off setups anymore. We're only doing setups and onboarding for clients that we're going to have on an ongoing basis. So, chances are, if there's a lot of training that's being required in, say, months 2 and 3 after we did the setup in month 1, that's okay, because we're probably not doing a lot of accounting during those months either, because that means that the onboarding process has been delayed, either most likely because the client needs more training. So we know that the monthly fee is going to cover that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you bundle it in because there's obviously other services that you put together, which makes a lot of sense.